The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contests, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
Put on your tinfoil hats because it's time for another Weird Wednesday. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead. Feel free to check out our channel for a whole plethora of different podcasts ranging from The Walking Dead to the paranormal to conspiracies. But today we're talking extraterrestrials. And did I say that right? Extraterrestrial. How does that dude on Ancient Astronaut say it? Extraterrestrial.
Something like that.
I just need to poof my hair up.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're talking about extraterrestrials today. And JP, we're seeing more and more coming out from the government. I mean, just a few months ago, they confirmed that the UFOs that were captured on camera, which in part that footage, cool kind of circle of life here. I used to be a big Blink-182 fan, and I think you said you used to like them as well.
Yeah.
You know, Tom DeLonge, I think, I don't know if I ever say his last name right, but he actually, he's a part of a big, truth-seeking organization, that looks for and tries to expose government cover-up when it comes to extraterrestrials. And from what I've read, he was a big part of that footage being released. So, my childhood pop punk hero also is the one who's uncovering the truth.
Well, I'm glad he's investigating UFOs and not the Ninth Circle, so we don't find out that he's thrown himself.
I was going to say
a bridge
he's
or something.
Committed suicide by shooting himself in the head 14 times.
Yeah, exactly. But no, man, it is crazy because the last few years the government has actually been putting stuff out there. We've been learning more about these flying objects, which kind of makes me wary, but we'll get into that after we talk about what's being released. I first, a few days ago, Joe Rogan tweeted with the Pentagon's recent statement that not only are UFOs real, but they have recovered a craft that is, quote, not from this world, and then he plugs his podcast from the previous week.
Quick question for you before we really dive into it. Do you think the government's softening us up? Do you think that what's happening is they know that if they, 20 years ago, if they would have just came out and been like, all right, complete transparency, yes, extraterrestrials exist. We've been in contact with them. They visit our planet all the time. I mean, you just imagine the debates and the panic and the riots. I mean, why are you letting them abduct us then? And just all this kind of, do you think that what the government's doing is taking baby steps to get us more open to the idea of extraterrestrials? And of course, things like entertainment, for the last 30 years, we've been just constantly exposed to movies about aliens and extraterrestrials and all these other things. Do you think that's what's happening? Is they're kind of softening us up so that when they finally come out and say, hey, yes, extraterrestrials exist, we're admitting it, that we'll be less likely to just start taking to the streets and going crazy? Well,
in past podcasts, we've talked about space fraud, social conditioning. I definitely think it's part of a long ongoing social conditioning campaign. I think the end goal is a little bit more sinister than a lot of people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. Like I said, I'll get into my feelings and thoughts on that. I don't preach them as gospel, but I do have kind of a hanky feeling about what's going on in the upper echelons.
This I'm excited to hear about. I feel like I've half heard about it, but I'll be interested in you refreshing my memory.
Yeah, man. We've talked about this before, but like I said, I figured it was worth rehashing with all this stuff coming up, especially with what the New York Times has reported in the last week or so. It says the Pentagon's program to identify and explain unidentified flying objects is now being coordinated by the Office of Naval Intelligence and may reveal some findings about mysterious unexplained aerial phenomena to the public, this is according to a report by the New York Times on Thursday, that I think it was last Thursday. And the report also suggests that the task force has been established to standardize collection and reporting on unidentified aerial phenomenon, the links they may have to foreign governments, and the threat they pose to the U.S. military. The New York Times goes on to say that the Pentagon officials will not discuss the program, but they've got this task force that's preparing reports on all this unidentified flying objects, blah blah blah, and it's a lot of weird stuff. And I'm looking for this quote where they actually claim to have material. Yeah, here it is. The New York Times report also highlights claims by Eric W. Davis, an astrophysicist who consulted with an earlier version of the Pentagon's UFO program, that unexplained materials had been retrieved that could not be made by human beings or on Earth. So there's people who have been on the inside of the Pentagon saying that, yeah, they've absolutely got stuff that came from somewhere other than this planet.
I mean, I wonder if they're identifying like elements that are not of our planet,
you know? Table. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reports that they've got technology and materials that could not have come from, any science that we understand. And
I wonder, reportedly this is from a craft. This is from a recovered aircraft.
Right. So like I said, I mean, more and more, if you want to call them mainstream sources, I think New York Times, I'm not saying that they're super credible, but they are a mainstream source. So for them to pick up on a story like this, it definitely makes you think.
Oh, yeah. So, all right, let's get into your sinister thoughts real quick. I'm sure people, I don't want to make them wait too long for that. You have an uneasy feeling about all of this, and what are your thoughts on the real reason why this is happening?
And we've went into this before, man. I think they're basically setting the stage for the biggest false flag of all time. It's basically Dr. Manhattan from The Watchmen. There's going to be a worldwide, quote unquote, global threat in the sense of extraterrestrials, an invasion, or even just introducing something like this, and that's how they're going to impose the one world government once and for all.
So they're going to use this as a false flag, more or less.
Absolutely,
to
man. And
take your rights away.
And this isn't me saying that there's not extraterrestrials. That's not me saying that we haven't recovered things not of this world. But I think they're basically setting the stage for the ultimate false flag. I think right now they're using social conditioning campaigns. I think that's a big part of what the virus is for. A big part of separating us with a lot of the riots and things. And they're going to basically set stage and be like, look, we've got to bring order in one fell swoop, because guess what? Now there's aliens, motherfucker.
So you're imagining kind of a Dr. Manhattan or Watchmen situation. Yes. Like they'll use this as, so basically there definitely could be extraterrestrials, and they might even know of extraterrestrials, but they're just going to use our intrigue and interest in this, or even our fear of this, and then what they're going to do is use that to get us to basically surrender our rights to the state and or to the government, and then more or less have us begging them to take our rights away under the pretense of we're protecting you.
And we're talking about a worldwide police state. Think about that. Non-representative government, basically just a martial law way of life where, you do what they say, or else, it's not going to end good for you. And when there's UFOs popping up over Dallas and here, there, and yonder, I mean, of course you're going to do what they say. Holy shit, there's UFOs all over the place. I saw a crocodile man walking down the street the other day. What's going on? I don't know.
So you think Schnit's about to get crazy?
I think that's definitely what they're gearing up for. And I mean, this isn't an original thought. This is what a lot of people out there in the, in the conspiracy circles are talking about and have been talking about for a long time.
It's a scary thought, man. And you could be exactly right. I mean, they definitely could, because let's not pretend that the powers to be I'm not sitting here just trying to dog America. I mean, every country, let's not pretend that nations and the ones in charge don't use situations like this to their advantage.
No, man. I mean, there's a worldwide cabal of these evil people, and a lot of it has to do, we were talking about the Ninth Circle, these, child sex traffickers and people like this that just, want the world to be their buffet. And, you get your hand slapped if you reach for the cherry carrots or whatever.
Right.
Candy carrots, not cherry carrots. That's not a thing.
Man, that's so the end goal is just complete control. And so tell us a little bit about the one world government. So this is a network of people from like all first world countries, more or less, that just want to take over the world.
Well, there's like the Bilderberg group, the Rothschilds. I did have a little list. There's I think it's like the World Defense Council or something like that. I'm horrible at remembering names and stuff, but there is an elite group, and you can pinpoint it to a very, very small amount of these factions. And yeah, they're basically vying for control of the entire planet.
And so if you had to bank your money on what's going on, that's what you would.
That's what I'm thinking, man. And like I said, I'm not trying to say that there are not extraterrestrials out there or anything like that. I'm just saying that
they're taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
Because in Watchmen, there were extra. I mean, well, if you want to go by the comic, in the movie, of course, they made Dr. Manhattan be the, they did that that's where it really kind of differentiated from the comic, and it's spoilers, but my God, how long have both been out by now? Right. The Watchmen movie, you basically, Ozymandias decides to make Dr. Manhattan public enemy number one in order to bring the world together, whereas in the comic, he decides to open a gate to another dimension and bring in this alien thing, and it kills lots of people, and of course that's what gets everybody to band together. So I mean, even in that, there were other dimensions and other extraterrestrial creatures, but he just used it to his advantage to get what he wanted.
Yeah, and that's why I was so stoked for the TV show, because they follow the comic book storyline as opposed to the movie.
Right,
with the squids falling from the sky and all that stuff. But yeah, man. I mean, I definitely think that is the end goal, and I think that's been the end goal for a long time. And they finally set it up to where it's a feasible thing. The world's more connected than it's ever been.
So this is a plan that would have been. Do you think it's a plan that's been in the works for a very long time?
Hundreds of years, dude.
Or do you think it's one that they've just been waiting for the perfect opportunity? What I'm saying is, do you think it's been hundreds of years of small steps, in which case would require incredible dedication from people who were never why, if they're that selfish and they want to take over the world, then why would they put so much time and effort into a plan that would not benefit them the way it would benefit people 100, 200 years past their death? Do you think that perhaps it's been a plan and they've just been waiting for the right time to strike? Like perhaps the plan was made 100 years ago, but they had to wait for the right time to launch.
I mean, it's they're playing the long game, while the rest of us are looking at politics and stuff like this. We're watching a checkers match. They're playing chess, man. They're thinking, 10 moves ahead. And and a lot of these people, bloodlines are very important, dynasties, and the end goal, in my estimation, a lot of things I've researched, the end goal is they want to be like the new gods. They want to be immortal. They want to merge their biology with technology. And we see that happening more and more every day, to where just sentience is something that just doesn't die with your brain. It's something that they can sort of merge with the synthetic, and they're not going anywhere, and then you have less and less need for, average Joes like you and I. So, hey, why not wipe out half the population? We've got a slave race. Oh, now everything's automated, so we really don't need humans at all. And it just goes on and on from there. They basically want to be the next step in human evolution and become just something entirely different altogether.
Well, we have heard talk through the years, from the Rothschilds, about population control.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember watching a speech by one of the Rothschild seniors, I don't know how many years ago. It wasn't recent, but it wasn't necessarily terribly old, I guess. But where he was talking about, it was a tragedy that infant mortality was at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Because of how overpopulated the world's getting. I mean, some very Thanos type conversation, hey, it's a tragedy that we've come so far and we're able to, because think about even the Western days. I mean, what was it, 1 out of 3 mothers giving birth would die, and that number might be a little bit high, but I know it was, when you were having a child back in the Old West, or even way beyond that, it was a scary thing, because there was a okay chance you might not make it.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's why people talk about early humans. The average age was 30 years old. It wasn't because there wasn't any old people. It's because the infant mortality was so high. And when you average it all out, the average age is 30, 35 years old.
Oh, yeah.
But no, man, I mean, you talk about depopulation, Bill Gates has come right out and talked about how, one of his key objectives is population control and things like this. I don't think he's just talking about handing out condoms in third world countries. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I think
that's true.
It's chemical castration. I think a lot of it's, putting out fake, what may seem like medical assistance is actually, killing more people than it's helping. I think him talking about microchipping people is very disturbing.
Yeah, the microchipping thing, I normally, when it comes to conspiracies, I usually try to be a little bit more skeptical because, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's like right now with the coronavirus. Basically, if you, and it's just, it's so crazy how people just let the media dictate the way they feel about something. Basically, if you think there's something more to the coronavirus than it just being what it is on the surface, then you're just a crazy nut. You know what I mean? Yeah. But how many people probably were coming forward talking about Epstein and all of these celebrities banging teenage girls and we're told, oh, you're crazy. And now it's coming to light. According to a listener that I was talking to the other day, the Maxwell tapes are Maxwell, something's supposed to come out tomorrow, Thursday, July that would be the 30th. So if there's they're be on the lookout for a false flag if you're in that school of thought that they do these things to divert your attention away from what's happening. That's what I'm going to be interested in, because if something crazy happens today or tomorrow, it's definitely going to not necessarily make me put on the tinfoil hat, but I'm going to pull it out the bag and set it in my lap. And,
yeah, man, I'm looking at an article right now, and I haven't listened to this, so I'll fact check it yourself. But it says in a TED Talk in 2010, Bill Gates stated that his intention to reduce the world's population through vaccination, basically using it as a way to sterilize people and create infertility and all this stuff. And like I said, man, it's just where that may, with the population out of control, maybe. That seems like a good idea on paper, but where does it stop? Next thing you know, they're
doing the Thanos lottery we're going to have to start exterminating people to get this population under control. Yeah, I see where that could be scary. And that's the conflicting thing for me, because I'm not one of these anti-vaxxers, man. Call me a sheep, whatever you want to call me. But you don't get smallpox now, thanks to the smallpox vaccination. Polio's not something, there's so many things that are, even just our great-great-grandparents had to worry about that we don't have to worry. We have the luxury, the convenience of just going through life not worrying about polio. Right now it's cancer, but how many years before they have a vaccine that stops cancer growths, or whatever the medical term for what stops that. But so part of me, if they came out with a COVID vaccine, is like, well, why wouldn't you take the vaccine? Then we can all just get the world back to normal. But I also know the dangers of that kind of thinking. Of course, just, like me, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't mind wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. I've heard the arguments. It doesn't work. Oh, it's good. But you know what? Here's the thing. Here's my thought process. And this is me. Call me a sheep or whatever you want, man. Like with the masks, okay, if I go to Walmart requires that I wear shoes and a shirt to go into the door. I know this is an overused argument. But I don't scream my rights of being violated when I walk in there in my boxers and they say, sir, you have to put on pants to come in here. I'm not like, my rights, you're taking my rights. I'm like, well, it's their store, it's their policy. If they want me to wear a mask, that's not the government. And I know the government's influencing them. I get everything. The mask doesn't bother me. Now, when it comes to government mandated vaccines, that's when I would start getting a little... so I don't know, but it's one of those things where once you start getting into the microchipping and the cash shortage and the mandatory vaccines, that's where I start pulling out my tinfoil hat. And I'm like, okay, now the mask didn't bother me, but but on the other hand, I can see the argument against the mask. And I know what people are saying. It's, my friends, I would say more on the left side of the political spectrum, basically just say, oh, if you won't wear the mask, you're a selfish redneck, white trash asshole. And they're like, my rights. But then my more conservative to libertarian friends, I get what they're saying when they're like, it's not that we mind wearing a mask. It's what these mandates lead to, giving up control, what it leads to. So that's what sucks, is to kind of be on the outside and see both sides. And you really just have to decide for yourself which side of the spectrum are you on. Yeah, well, a lot of people are saying, forget about even microchipping, that we're moving in a direction to where you'll have a national ID card, which will have information even going into a vaccination record and say,
you're not up on all your vaccinations, you can't get on an airplane, you can't have a certain job,
can't go into a grocery store.
Go into a grocery store, and that's what a lot of people are really worried about. And wasn't it like our database thing that we use to pull stories for the morning show?
Yeah.
Didn't they have a story like yesterday or sometime this week about in Florida? They're going to set up like checkpoints to where if you don't have a mask on, you'll get fined like $100.
Oh, I don't know if it was Florida exactly,
like
but
that, right?
there was somewhere doing that. Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, they're starting to police this. I know certain countries, man, if you granted, this comes from our barber friend down the road when I was getting my head shaved the other day. He said, brother, if you step out your house in whatever country, you step out your door without a mask, they're going to give you a ticket right then, right there. So anyway, man, it is scary. I think masks, and if they work just a little bit, I'm all for it. But the fact that they're using it
as a means to control
social conditioning, I think, just to see how easy it is to get us to fall in line. It
I think we're on the same page with that. Like the mask thing, I completely understand, and I don't like the idea that they're using that as a starting point of control and conditioning. I don't. But as far as but the human part of you, not the crazy. Well, not crazy. That's a bad term. But the part of you that is thinking that it could be something more than it is on the surface, it just sucks because a good part of you wants to be like, well, if wearing a mask could even help prevent me passing this to someone who can't handle this virus, then I want to do that. I want to save lives. But I also know that that's how you get people to do what you want them to do, is by proposing that they're doing it for their fellow man. Yeah. Countries have been using that mindset of there's something bigger than yourself. You're doing this for your country, for your motherland. That's been a means to get people to do what the government wants for hundreds of years, thousands even. You know what I mean? So and I don't know. I'm such a conflicted individual. Like I understand blind patriotism is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
But I'm a patriot. I love my country, and maybe it's just because my dad was in the Army and I was raised that you put your hand over the heart for the anthem. You respect.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. But I believe you could support the troops with that. It's like Eminem said once when it's like, I'm all for America, the government. It's like, and by the way, I bleeped out the F word, but he said, I'm all for America, F the government. Yeah. So it's like, I'm for the idea that America stands for, and I'm for the troops, but I definitely don't trust the government. But it's like, it's hard finding that balance between being like a patriot but not being a blind patriot.
Right. Well, I mean, this was a big argument right after 9/11. How many freedoms do we sacrifice to be safe from terrorism?
And we actually sacrificed quite a few. It was like, go out and try to buy a house. I mean, I know at least in our state of Virginia, man, like it was at a point, because, I mean, when you buy a house, it's just constantly like, oh, we need money for this. Oh, by the way, send us money for this. It's almost like you're dealing with one of those con people that's like, by the way, I need more money for this. Mm-hmm. And I remember at one point they were like, oh, we need $1,500 for so-and-so.
Yeah.
I keep cash, like I've always been that way. My grandpa never put to my knowledge, he didn't put the vast majority of his money in the bank, just didn't trust the electronic system, was just terrified that one day he'd walk in to withdraw money, right? Mm-hmm. And they'd be like, oh, we've lost your bank account, so he kept money, just old school. I think, especially coming from like depression era and things like that. So I keep most of my money in the bank, but I do try to keep, like at least $1,000 in cash. Mm-hmm. So basically they needed this money, and I had kind of exhausted my bank account at this point. This was years ago. And so I was like, okay, well, yeah, I've got $1,500 in cash I can give you. Oh no, we can't accept cash. We call that mattress money. You can't do that. And I was like, well, that's stupid. That's part of the Patriot Act from W. Bush's era post 9/11 to keep terrorists from being able to buy houses to create things like training facilities. Mm-hmm. And even then I was like, that's bullshit. Like, that's money.
Yeah.
Screw you. Screw the idea. That's money. That's my money. It's money I worked for. I mean, why do I have to? And then you got to give all these bank statements to prove. It's just so inconvenient. But it's in the name of safety.
And I heard somewhere, and again, I haven't fact checked this. You're going to hear me say that a lot. I haven't fact checked this, but
well, that's why this is a discussion and not a presentation.
Right. But yeah, it's actually illegal to not take legal tender. Like if you have cash and say you're running a business or whatever, I mean, it's like in the Constitution, you legally are obliged to take that cash, either that or give it to them for free.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's something worth checking into. But
I feel like I have heard that as well. I will definitely have to fact check that, but I feel like that is definitely something I've heard. Because that's why, like, if you go somewhere and pay like your electric bill in pennies, being an ass, like they have to take it.
Yeah.
But I mean, then again, you do see some places that can just straight up say we don't accept hundreds.
Well, I mean, like Walmart right now, they straight up say, digital transactions only, got to be debit or credit.
And I've heard that's all conditioning. That's just getting us ready
for a cashless society.
And what's crazy is, again, remember, I mean, if you've been listening to this podcast for years, you know that when JP launches into his conspiracy stuff, I'm usually over here. You can hear me rolling my eyes through the microphone. Just don't. But I mean, a lot of things that these conspiracy people have been saying for so long are starting to come to fruition, and it's a little scary. I mean, like, that's part of the one world government is no cash. It's all electronic. So more or less the government can control your money and your livelihood. Whereas when you have cash, they can't control your physical cash. You can go out and do what you want. It creates a dependency on the government when you're on this electronic pay, and that's it. And now that's starting to happen. I mean, like, I'm seeing places like Burger King or like due to cash shortage. Are you really short on cash though?
Well, the thing with me is like the coin shortage. Like, how often does a coin really get retired? I get paper bills get tattered, they get torn, they have to be retired, more has to be printed. But like coins, I mean, do coins really get retired in that big of an amount that frequently? I don't know.
Right.
Which I know I hear a lot of it too is like the U.S. Treasury, they with the coronavirus, there's less people working, so less stuff is getting distributed. I hear that argument as well, but no, it's getting harder and harder to deny, a lot of these conspiracy theories.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, and I'm not caving into all of them. I mean, sometimes, like with these conspiracy people, you make enough predictions, some of them are bound to appear to be coming true. So, I mean, I'm definitely not necessarily straight up buying into the one world government thing, but I do find it very peculiar, and I'm not saying that I'm going to deny it going forward. I could definitely just go full-fledged. They're trying to control us. But it is crazy how some of the things that all these crazy people have been saying for the last 10, 20 years are starting to actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, man. Well, it's like 20 years ago. If somebody had said, Hollywood's one big pedophile cult, you'd have said that's the craziest shit I've ever heard. But now, that's pretty much how it is. And I mean, look, what, Tom Hanks, did you see that? Tom Hanks became a Greek citizen. Him and his wife, Rita Wilson, are now official citizens of Greece. Of Greece. And you know one interesting thing about Greece, from what I've been reading, is there no extradition?
There's no extradition. And we've got these files getting ready to be released, or these tapes tomorrow, which we've heard on that list of people to go to Epstein's Island. Tom Hanks is one of them.
Wow.
So it definitely seems like he knows he's going to be in a world of crap. Once this comes out, his name's going to be thrown out there, and he's making sure that he's put himself in a place where he doesn't have to face the consequences for it, which sucks because I love Toy Story and Forrest Gump and pretty much everything, Tom. If Tom Hanks is in a movie, I'll watch it. And I hate to think that he would be one of those, but I'm going to wait till everything comes out before I straight up put him in that camp. I would like to hold out hope that perhaps maybe he's just a really big fan of Greek culture, and
maybe he just loves Greek food.
Maybe he's got family from there. I saw that. I haven't done I haven't seen the other side of the argument. I've just seen the arguments as to, he moved down there to escape this whole Epstein debacle. I'm sure somewhere there's an article that can debunk all of that and be like, no, actually, if you do your research, Tom Hanks's great grandma's Greece and he grew up in Greece. Something. Maybe there's something else to it that you're not being shown, because we know media, God forbid, they actually give you something that maybe is not, it causes an uproar. It's got to be negative and But I'm interested to see where that goes, man. And side note, because we're here to talk more about aliens, but just a little side note. Sometimes, like, the rational side of me doesn't necessarily know that they're raping, like, little babies, like people say, but it's almost like, to me, from watching the Epstein documentary on Netflix, it seems more like perhaps, which is still disgusting and wrong, but what they're doing is they're more or less taking teenagers, like, hey, you want to have sex with, they don't necessarily having sex with babies, but they're having sex with these, like, very early, because Epstein loved like the 14, 15 age range. more or less he had it. Because, I mean, you got to look at the documentary. He would offer, these girls, he would get these girls to go out for him and be like, hey, we'll give you $200 if you just come give this old guy a massage.
Yeah.
And then they ended up screwing him. But then before long, they were going out recruiting other girrs. I mean, you imagine he says, hey, I don't know, say you're going on a school field, or even if they enslave them, whatever. But more or less, he had an island where these celebrities could go to and have sex with these teenage girls. Because I hear all kinds of things. Oh, they were raping babies. Oh, they were sacrificing babies. Oh, they're molesting preteens. From all I've seen, I definitely think that Epstein had some messed up crap going on that island. But it seems to me like all signs point more to like they had teenage girls on the island. And these celebrities,
I think that's kind of like the layer of filth on the surface. I think if you dive deep, man, there's probably no end to their depravity.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, when you get that
You're
rich
right.
and that powerful, man, you probably there's no telling. There's no telling.
That's true.
Because I mean, there's definitely people with those kind of urges. I mean, there's no denying that. There's some sick monkeys out there. So I think you get to a point where if you can afford it, they can make it happen. Kind of like on remember the dude on Game of Thrones? He kept making them bring out the prostitutes, younger, and eventually it's like a little.
You could be right. I definitely think the teenage girls were the majority of it, which is still disgusting. But I think that's. But I don't know, man. But anyways, the aliens, the extraterrestrials. So
hopefully they're not pedophiles. I hope the aliens are.
From what I've heard, they don't even have like genitalia.
Yeah.
From what you see on the Greys, they don't seem to have any kind of reproductive organs. Like almost they're so advanced that they just create their own life. They just go in the lab and there's no need for sex, which, as we know, one thing about evolution, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yep.
And, especially those that theorize that extraterrestrials are us from the future, which I'm not against. That's a very interesting theory. I mean, thousands and thousands, if not millions of years in the future. I mean, just think about like the effects of living in space, what it would have on your body. I mean, even if you are in a controlled environment, still being in space has effects on your body. I mean, that's why astronauts come back after living on the International Space Station. And there are things about their bodies that have changed, and it takes them a while to reacclimate to life on Earth. So, I mean, imagine your people, maybe the planet, maybe we destroy the planet because overall humans can suck most of the time.
Yeah.
So we've destroyed our own planet and we've taken to space. I mean, imagine the evolution that we would go through being off of what we evolved from. I mean, that could, and then we're getting more advanced with cloning and artificial insemination and reproduction that we might just get to the point where we're like, hey, just start making babies all in factories or in tubes. And I mean, think about it. Over long periods of time, no using your genitalia, people would probably start losing their genitalia.
Yeah, that's scary to think about too. Like bioengineering humans. Think about it. Like if the doctor says, "Hey, there's a genome here," your kid's got a pretty good chance of being like schizophrenic or bipolar or one of these things, and they just like eliminate that. Think about all the like artistic personalities that created this art because they were super depressed or borderline schizo, and you just eliminate that. I mean, you're eliminating part of what makes humans and a big part of kind of what we've created over the years. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
We would have I don't know a good example like Van Gogh or freaking Kurt Cobain or one of these kind of guys. If they weren't all uffed up in the head, would that art even exist?
That's a good point.
So I don't know, man. It's very interesting times.
Yeah, but so as these things come out, we'll definitely be discussing them because, man, I mean, like the young Justin that, used to love sci-fi and stuff inside me wants to rejoice because, hey, we might really find out that extraterrestrials are real, and it'd be just a crazy milestone in human history that we watched and observed and were a part of. But then when I hear people like yourself and other people going, oh, no, there might be extraterrestrials, but they're not going to introduce us to them or anything. They're just going to use this, as the government loves to do, going to take something and use it to their advantage to just grip tighter on their population. So I don't know. Let us know in the comments section what you think. And remember, we can disagree, people. This is one thing that I think the government and the media is trying to do, is to just draw in this line in the sand. You're either this or you're this. There's no in between. And if you're not this, then you're enemy number one. Let's discuss things. I mean, I'm sure I'm not going to agree with things that you think, and you're not going to agree with things I think, but let's discuss it. Let me hear your ideas. Like, enlighten me. I mean, JP, I think you've helped me become even more open-minded to these things. I don't shut them down as quick as I used to. I actually will listen and have a 30-minute discussion on them, whereas I believe a year or two ago, I'd have been like, dude, that's just crazy talk. You know what I mean?
Still hadn't swayed you on the flat earth.
That's not going to happen. But, so if you've got to, enlighten us, join in the conversation in the comments section. I mean, we've had several podcasts that have come from things in the comments section.
Oh, yeah.
So feel free. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Check out our channel. We've got all kinds of podcasts for all kinds of people. We also have a Patreon, which is for as little as $1 a month. You get 8 extra podcasts a month that are a lot more personal. They're a lot more the conversation goes all over the place. They're some of our favorite podcasts to do. And we're definitely not just saying that because it's Patreon. Like, we genuinely really enjoy those podcasts. It's kind of like therapy for us. And we're now doing secret giveaways. So we've given away prizes for the last 2 weeks, and we're going to continue that for a little while. So make sure to check that out. And as always, we love you and we appreciate you. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead. Stay weird.